Hey there, welcome back to the Dodgeball Marketing Podcast and Video Podcast. This is episode 34, and go ahead and hit like and subscribe if you're watching on YouTube. We're going to bring you weekly marketing tips for regular people, not nerdy insiders like us. So our goal is to bring you actionable things you can do to affect your digital marketing, no matter who you are and what kind of business you're running. Ways to improve your digital marketing.
Yeah.
So, Michael, on this podcast, on this episode, we're talking about service pages, how to make your service pages work for you on search engines. Now, Michael, I've heard you talk a lot about search pages. I'm actually just going to interview directly for this episode, since it's kind of more in your wheelhouse. But service pages are kind of an underutilized, underrated part of a website, especially local businesses that have different services. So, why do you think that is? What role do service pages play, and what is a service page?
Yeah, I'm really excited about this topic. There's a real gap between how business owners, marketing managers, people who are inside a company think that everyone sees their business and their offers compared to how customers who are looking for something to solve a problem see it. And services pages are really where there's a lot of opportunity for traction in search engines, so connecting with more people. Number one is make services pages more than minimum length. Often we think of services pages as, we kind of tell people on the homepage what we do, and maybe we've got a service page with a sentence, maybe a couple of pictures of some work we've done or samples, maybe a little bit of content or something. It's almost seen as a sort of minimal statement of some bulleted list that just didn't fit on the homepage. We actually flip that. We say, no, treat this more like a blog post where you're going to have more than 500 words, maybe 500 to 1,000 words. You can have a little intro paragraph that gives search engines some text to grab onto. You can have a meta description that's unique for the page. You can have a page title in your H1 that's really thoughtfully crafted with the right keywords. And then you can have things like a gallery of images and have alt tags for the images and captions for the images. And even the file names of the images are an opportunity in that gallery. And then another thing that we really like to do is to have, and we'll talk about this more later in the episode, but to have a bulleted list of text that are subservices. These are the benefits or the features or the components that make up this service. And that's just going to be solid, good keywords.
And a lot of times, just to interject, a lot of times those subservices are ways that your customers are searching for you, that you don't identify.
That's right.
I'm trying to think of an example. Like let's go back to our janitorial example. What would be an example of a subservices page that maybe a customer would want to search for, but that the business wouldn't necessarily see themselves as? Right.
Yeah, something as simple as disinfectant services office.
Right.
It's that, that's the type of search somebody would hammer into a search engine.
Yeah. And and a janitorial company wouldn't call themselves that kind of, they're a janitorial or property management, but the customer's looking for this one specific problem.
So companies are always trying to punch up with their positioning, and that's good. But this block of subservices is an opportunity to kind of punch down. It's an opportunity to say, hey, we know what you're looking for.
Gymnasium painting, Norfolk.
That's a great subservice.
That's a really specific. Are you a gymnasium painting company? Well, because we're a painting company, but you're addressing exactly what that customer is looking for.
That's right. That's right.
Awesome.
Yeah, good. Next up, use both technical and user-friendly service keywords. So this is kind of what we were talking about in the previous point, but a bulleted list on your services pages, if kind of near the middle or maybe at the top of the bottom third, you have a pretty good collection. I would say you could even go, we try to do on a desktop view, we try to do maybe 3 columns is pretty typical. But I would say you can go 15 bulleted items, 21 bulleted items, even 24. It can be a pretty solid chunk of stuff. But what you want to do there, we mentioned this previously, but you want to, companies are always trying to punch up and have sort of like, no, we want to be the elite janitorial services brand for the Southeast. That's fine. But in this bulleted list, you can say trash removal. Or whatever it is. And so this is kind of your spot to punch down a little bit and say, We know how people are searching for it, and we're going to just put it in the list. Here's a really good example. We do a lot with commercial and industrial painters and flooring companies, polyurea versus epoxy. And so sometimes if you have your services page, you may not offer epoxy. You may be doing polyurea, which is a different product. It's a different material. And so a bulleted list doesn't necessarily say, hey, we offer this, but you can have the topic polyurea versus epoxy as a bulleted item that says, your bulleted list could be contextualized or something like, we meet all these needs.
Yeah.
But then you can maybe have that bulleted item say choosing polyurea versus epoxy. And you can even, and we'll talk about this more, link to a subservices page. But it's a way to kind of work in how your average typical customer is actually searching for not necessarily the exact right thing that you do, but the problems that you solve.
Yeah.
It's connective tissue. Yeah.
And you get that long tail. For that, the epoxy keyword you mentioned, there might be 5 or 6 people, depending on where you are, that search for that per month. But the intent is so high.
Yeah.
The intent is so high with those that you don't care really if the volume is high, because these are people that know exactly what their problem is and they're looking to solve it right now.
Yeah, so polyurea versus epoxy. So on the polyurea, if they search for that, the intent's very high, even though it's low volume. And then on the epoxy, the intent's probably pretty good and the volume's high. And so, but if you're not offering epoxy, it's a way to kind of work that in.
Yep.
Yeah.
What do we got next here? Build and link to sub-service pages. Is that one we just did?
One above that. Yep.
Okay. Answer real customer questions in service Q&As.
Yeah, this is a good one. We've talked about this a number of times, but we really like content that reflects the type of conversations that people are having during the sales or purchase process, and the types of things people are searching for as long-form question searches in a search engine. And so if you're familiar with People Also Asked as a section of the Google search results page, that's a really good source for understanding the nuance and the detailed types of problems people are trying to solve. Also, there are some platforms out there that are just question answer format platforms. Quora is a website that's just questions and answers. And it's kind of like a cool sort of thing, because sometimes the actual, I don't know if Elon Musk has ever done this, but sometimes someone will say, what time does Elon Musk go to bed? And Elon Musk will pop in and answer the question. And so there's a little bit of a unique factor there. But if you use Quora to kind of look at your industry and what sort of things people are doing, you can see the actual real world problems people are trying to solve. An example I use sometimes is how soon can I return to sports after an ACL repair? This is a very detailed, complex search. And it has to do with it depends on what sport it is. Are we talking archery or are we talking soccer? These are 2 different deals. And I've got kids who've done both. And so, how do you answer this after an ACL repair? And so these sorts of real world problems, the more you can work those into your service pages, and the way you do this is you don't necessarily have to answer everything about the questions. You're actually just using blocks of content on your services page to build out additional pages underneath. So you can do this with FAQ content. We talked in the previous segment about subservices being kind of a catch-all, a bulleted list of subservices and topics covered. But yeah, FAQ content's another kind of block that you can roll in to a services page and answer lots of different types of questions.
Yeah. That's great. Number 4, and we've talked about subservice pages, but this is about specifically linking subservice pages. So this is build and link to subservice pages. So Michael, let's talk about the architecture of the site and how you can use these subservice pages to build more authority for your main pages.
That's right. So we think we call these tentpole pages, and I think that's a pretty common SEO term. I don't think that's something we invented, so whoever gets credit for that, thank you. But this is a concept we've been using, I don't know, probably 10 years. But if it's in your top nav, and maybe you've got a top nav on your website and you've got your 3 or 4 big categories right there in your top nav, and maybe you've got a drop down menu underneath that, and you're supporting those services pages. What you want to think of is either whether it's in your top nav or you've just got services and a drop down, whatever those big categories are, you want a really strong services page that's kind of the tent pole that everything is centered around. And then what you want to do is think about a circus tent the pegs that are around the perimeter of the circus tent, these are the supporting pages. So we internally call these subservices. And then what you want to do is build these so that the subservices pages are all linking, maybe in a call to action type area at the bottom or something that says, this is part of our industrial flooring service, or this is part of our commercial cleaning service. And then link back to that main services page, because then all those subservices pages have links and are creating inbound links to your main service page and sort of supporting it. And then on the flip side, that main services page, it can link out to all those subservices, like we said, in a block of bullet points, or any kind of navigational element that you put into the page to link these things. And the good thing about these links is you're not linking the text "click here." You're actually selecting keyword-rich text and putting your links on that text. You don't ever want to link the words "click here." That doesn't really tell. That's a missed opportunity. It doesn't help search engines know what the target page is about. But if you're linking up and down between your tent pole and your tent pegs, your supporting pages, you're able to infuse a lot of keyword-rich links into the site architecture, and it's good usability. If people are reading through a subservices page and then they want to go back to that main service, they're kind of taken back into the conversation where they left off. So yeah, that's a really good way to do it. An example of this would be for like an interior painting service. You might have a list, a block of subservices, walls, ceilings, cabinets, trim. And these are all different things that people search for. Cabinet painting company near me. And if you've got a page on cabinet painting and the architecture of the site is clear, it's clearly part of interior painting, search engines are intuitively going to know, okay, this is some kind of painting company, and they've got cabinets, and yes, they're in the area of the person doing the search. And so that's a really good way for all this stuff to work together and help search engines do their job.
Perfect. Number 5, the fifth and final thing to make service pages work for you for SEO is avoid Salesy CTAs or call to actions. What do we mean? What's a Salesy CTA?
I love this one. I think we're kind of innovative on this. So we've started doing something lately where we're kind of pushing the envelope a little bit, and so far we're getting good results. Everyone's jaded. Everyone's thrown off. We're so saturated by media. When we have a call to action on a page and it feels kind of pitchy, it immediately kicks in sort of a fight or flight reaction on the part of the audience.
I call it threat level.
Threat level, yeah. And the audience today is so sophisticated. Really, the better way to develop a call to action is, instead of saying, hey, have we got the answer for your problem? We know exactly what you're looking for, and we're here to help. You got to call us right now. That comes off as a little pushy. What we're doing now is we're really leaning heavily, and we're doing this with kind of pulling our punches in call to actions, but also in blog content, not ending with a paragraph that is essentially a CTA. So we're doing this in a lot of our strategy. We're actually focusing on having a tone where we're coming across more as a collaborator and an educator, and providing a resource to the people who are trying to solve their problems. So the way that plays out in a CTA, if Salesy is kind of the tired way of doing it, the wired way of doing it is collaboration. And collaboration can look like this. Thank you for your interest. So you're acknowledging their participation by being on the webpage. We have professionals who are experts in the subject matter. That's letting them know something's available. We are available to answer your questions and to help you make the choices you need to make for product or service ABC XYZ. So this is a very different tone. Instead of using second person imperative every time you can, hey, call us, we're limiting that to shorter bits of text like buttons, where we can infuse and have a benefits oriented second person imperative. Get your free quote now. We're limiting it to places where people understand there's a functional necessity, and crafting it so we're still getting the value, but maybe on the other things not coming off as pushy. And so, avoiding a pushy sales CTA we think is really good. So instead of buy now or something, it's work with a performance marketing expert.
Yeah. I really like that as a call to action, and I'll interject too on this. This is less to do with SEO in general, but I think this is why this whole threat level thing. I think this is why quiz funnels are so quiz and assessments are such a good use of a call to action, because it communicates, I'm going to help you figure out what's right for you among these options. I used to work with hospital systems that perform bariatric surgery, and we had 2 calls to action on the pages that we drove traffic to, and so one was schedule an appointment. So that's people that know they're ready. But the call to action that was the most popular was a health assessment. So it was a quiz that you would walk people through, and they would give you various bits of information. And at the end, the idea was, we're going to tell you whether this is right for you or not. So that's great. More helpful, is more consultative, because some people took the quiz and they weren't the right fit for the surgery. So it's giving people, it's come alongside as that mentor and saying like, hey, you don't know if you're right for this service that we offer. That's okay. We're going to tell you, and if you're not a good fit, we'll tell you you're not a good fit. So that comes across. That's such a low threat level. And it's a quiz that people can take, and it gets people kind of into the funnel earlier, and it communicates to them like, hey, I'm not here to just push this on you and sell you something. I'm here to help you in your health journey. That's right. To see what's right for you.
That's good. That's a perfect example. Perfect example. Very collaborative. In a quiz, there's a natural give and take there. That's really a perfect way to be collaborative. Good. Well, this is it.
Cool. Hopefully that can help you. Again, service pages are underrated, underused. So hopefully you can take these points and, improve your own service pages for your website.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody.